The council members in for their annual visit. 752-2701 is our number. If you have a question or comment in the studio with us this afternoon, we have Council Member and Mayor Pro Tem Therese Lees, along with Council Member John Johnson and City Manager Greg Mansinger. So, the discussion shall begin. Now let's talk about one of the bigger projects which the City Council has been working on here for the past year and a half, or perhaps even longer, and that's a new City Hall. Of course, the old fire station, which became the town hall, is now off the site. The site has been cleared. And Greg, I guess we'll start with you. The City Council's hired an architect for this project.
Correct. We're working with Metzger Johnson. We're also going to be meeting with them on Monday, September 30th, to go over some of the details. They're working on the final drawings for City Hall right now, so we can get that out and bid sooner rather than later. Monday night we're going to be working on some of the details, like some of the mechanical issues. But we're excited. We've got a preliminary drawing. Looks like it's going to satisfy our needs. It's a first floor and a basement. Construction cost is around $1.5 million. That does not include professional fees, of course. But we're looking forward to getting everything ready and bid out here.
It's a little more than just a City Hall. This will also house the police department.
Correct. It'll hold city offices, police department. It'll have council chambers that'll be updated. We'll have microphones, video capability. It'll be modern City Hall. It'll last us 50 years, 100 years. We're looking forward to. We're very anxious to get out of our current site and get in the new building.
As far as the layout of the building, you've had some preliminary drawings. I imagine that at least the council chambers and most of your city offices are located on the first floor.
Everything's pretty much located on the first floor. We'll have some storage and evidence areas in the basement, but essentially it'll be a first floor, and you'll be able to walk in off of Broadway. You'll also be able to walk in off of the alley. You'll have the main walkway going down the main corridor, going down the middle. Off to the north, you'll have council chambers. Be able to handle quite a few more residents than we can now, and lately that would have been real handy.
With the busy meetings that you've had.
Everything we've had going on the past couple months. Also on the north side, we'll have a police station. And off to the south, we'll have our administrative offices, city clerk, water billing, my office, accounting, and file storage. But you walk in right off of Broadway, and you'll be met by a receptionist be able to direct you to where you can meet your needs.
Enough parking for city employees, plus I guess you're going to have at least some parking for visitors and citizens that are coming into the building. Or
we'll have to discuss parking a little bit more in detail. The front door, as I said, will be off of Broadway. You'll also have parking off of Wheeler. We did purchase the house in the corner of Swan and Wheeler for additional parking, which should accommodate city employees and hopefully some of the public as well. But you should have easy access right off of Broadway to park, get out of your car and go into City Hall and conduct your business.
You mentioned that you're going to be meeting with the architects here again soon, and I'm just wondering what the tentative timetable is that the council is working with as far as when construction may start and when the building may be open.
I'm hoping we can define that a little bit more on Monday, see exactly where the architects are. We need to get some of these detailed mechanical questions out of the way, which will actually, I guess, dictate some of the building design, and they should be able to give us a better idea, hopefully on Monday. We also have some minor issues that we need to get finished up, get wrapped up, so they can get that final design finished out. So I'm hoping Monday we can get an idea of where we are and how long it's going to take. I think it's still possible to be in our new facility into next year. So I'm optimistic.
Just what type of building is this going to be? A brick building, or it's not going to be a metal pole building, I know that, but the type of construction?
We've talked mainly about two different routes. One, of course, would be a brick facade, and the other would be utilizing radiators or that type of concrete precast structure, and I think with a metal roof, something that'll help it stand out and last that 50 to 100 years. Plus, at the same time, I think it'll look really nice, design that they're leading us to at this point. I think it'll look good. Residents will be proud of it.
Council members Johnson, Lees, some thoughts on this proposed new building, planned new building, even though the plans have not been finalized yet?
Well, I guess the only thing I can say about it is it's been a long time coming. Back when I was running for council the very first time, it was an issue. There were some people that had handicap problems that couldn't get up to the upstairs of the city hall, and we had to move our meetings to the fire station. With that, I think that there was always a problem with parking, and we bought the house there next to the future site, and we will have some out parking rather than on Broadway, which will help make the parking easier for the people on Broadway.
Stories?
You know, I came on council in 1992, and it's been a subject since 1992 on where to purchase it, what property to purchase, and where to move City Hall. And we have looked high and low, and this is probably the best alternative that we've come up with. We've had some of the residents participate in this, and they all decided they wanted City Hall to remain downtown. And with that, we continued our negotiations with Derby, and I think we've come up with a fairly good deal for us as well as for them. And I think people can revert back to my letter to the Hawkeye, I think it was August 10th, and I'll just stand by my letter because I think this is where City Hall needs to be.
I remember that at one time you were talking about sharing the old middle school in West Burlington with the school district as far as offices, and then there was talk about moving it out to the Prairie Meadow subdivision at one time, Pleasant Meadow subdivision. But again, after all the discussion and the reevaluation, it was decided, hey, let's just build on the old site, which used to be a fire station, I believe, was a fire station.
Right.
Let me ask you about this. As far as the cost of a structure like this for a community the size of West Burlington, this is not a Cadillac building, because I know that originally you had some plans presented and the price tag was more than $2 million. So it has been scaled back a bit. And I guess I'll ask you, Greg, basically about how this is going to be financed.
Sure. The original plans that we looked at were closer to over $2.5 million, and it was a two-story structure with a full and or partial basement. That was scaled back after meeting with the council and Metzger. We came up with the current first floor and basement, $1.5 million. Financing, as long as the past 2.5 years or so, the council's always talked about utilizing TIF and local option. There's always been concern that local taxes not be used to finance City Hall, or not be increased to finance City Hall, and that's our continued plan as we speak now. We're going to have a budget session here in the near future. I'd like to talk about capital improvement funds, and City Hall will be on it again, and I think that's a continued plan, is to talk about tax increment financing and local option sales tax. As for the cost and the size for a community, 3,161. We're not a typical community of 3,161. We've had a lot of business and commercial growth over the past 10 years. We're looking, and that's continuing. With today's economy, we're seeing people willing to build new houses, bring in new businesses. Chamber's been working hard with several companies out of Italy, and they're coming to town as well.
Right.
So we've got, that growth is still continuing, and we've got to provide the services both to our residents and to those new businesses and industries coming to town. So we're not the typical small town.
Most of West Burlington's residents should be aware, and those throughout the community, that right now your city offices are located at the old dirty furniture building. And of course, the city plans to dispose of that as soon as you get into your new digs.
Right. And I think that's something we're going to have to be talking about here at the council table in the short term. We need to start, we need to make a final decision on what we want to do with that. I think the council in general wants to sell that or have it sold by the time we're ready to move into the new city hall. We've got a new parking lot in back. We've got some decisions to make there too, whether or not we want to sell that along with the building, or we want to use that and provide that as additional parking for downtown area. It's worked out very good for us.
I want to go back to something you mentioned at the beginning when you were talking about new and improved council chambers as far as expanded and being audio-visually connected. And are we talking about the possibility of eventually cable casting city council meetings in the future?
Correct. At a minimum, be able to videotape and provide for a feed television feed at a later date, but being able to have the capability of broadcasting our council meetings. Yes.
That was a big issue when we were in the old building, because there were some of us that did want that to happen. It was the price of remodeling the inside of the building so that you could have a backdrop that would look right was enormous.
Now, as I remember, the council chambers up there were pretty noisy also with the ventilation
Pipes were,
system.
the pipes were clanking all the time, and the ventilation, the air conditioning, you couldn't, there's times you had to shut the air conditioner off so you could hear.
For the few forums that were held up there on cable, I remember it was kind of hard to hear and the sound wasn't that good.
But I think everybody is in agreement that the new city hall will have video audio capabilities, and I'm sure that that's going to happen. At least it should happen.
We have those same problems now in our current site. If it's 80 degrees out and we've got the air running in there, it's hard to hear. But if you turn the air off, the temperature shoots up and it's hard to conduct business. So we're looking forward to council chambers that will meet our needs.
Just joined us on Burlington's Talk Show. We're talking West Burlington City Council business. City Manager Greg Mansager, along with Council Members John Johnson and Reese Leeds. I'm J.K. Martin. We're going to take a break. We'll be back in a moment. If you got a question or comment about West Burlington City Government, don't be shy. 752-2701.
It's Monster.
And it's here. It's our Monster year-end closeout. The biggest, baddest sale of the year.
It's Monster.
Stein here with news that'll blow the boats right out of your neck. Like 0% financing for up to 60 months on all 2002s in stock at Deary Dodge Chrysler Isuzu. Or get up to a $4,000 rebate on selected models. The savings are positively electric.
It's our Monster year-end closeout.
Monster savings.
And that's not all. Used vehicles starting at just $995. Safety inspected and no...
Talk Show. I'm J.K. Martin. We're talking West Burlington City business this afternoon, 752-2701. In the studio with us once again, Mayor Pro Tem and Councilmember Reese Leeds. Well, you're the Mayor Pro Tem, so I'm going to call you that.
Thank you.
Mayor Hans Straussel couldn't join us today. Also, Councilmember John Johnson and City Manager Greg Mansager. Let's talk about streets for a minute. Living in West Burlington, I get to drive by a lot of them that are torn up and being reconstructed, and I'm wondering when they're going to be open again, Greg. What's going on here?
Soon.
Okay.
I've been telling council that for several weeks, though. Next week. Wheeler Street, of course, is open and looks great. I think we've had some great improvements, and I think once we're done, I think everybody will appreciate the new streets, the new storm. We're gonna have standing water, and we're gonna have some good streets. However, we have had some complaints about the time it's taken to get things done. Contractors have been, I think they've taken on probably a little bit too much this summer. We are working with them to try and get it done in as timely a fashion as we can. In fact, we are going to consider before our next major project, we're going to take a look at exactly how long we allow contractors between the time they start and the time they have to finish the project. We'll take a look at the penalties that we impose if projects are not completed on time. But we have to remember that if we increase those penalties or we decrease the time between start and finish, that those costs they could go up. So we'll have to take a careful look at that next time around and see exactly what we want to do. When all's said and done, though, I think we'll have East Wheeler and Winter Street improvements are done and finished. I think they look good, and I think residents have been happy. I've had some good comments about those. Wheeler, as I said, it is complete. I can walk down there and I think it looks really good. We're waiting on Glasgow, and I'm hoping to get that wrapped up here early next month. So.
Early next month.
It's the contract completion date is October 1st.
Okay. So they better start moving.
They need to get moving, yes.
I might add that
They've been reminded.
that the penalties will go in effect October 1st. I mean, I think we've all had enough complaints from residents, and I thank them for their patience, because I don't think I'd be a very patient person living there myself. It's just taken forever and a day. I think the storm sewer was started like the 1st of July, and we've been waiting for the pour of concrete since August, the first part of August.
Well, I'm no construction expert, but just driving by and looking, it looks like that's about all we're waiting for is putting down some concrete.
Concrete's pretty much in place. There's I have a few touch-ups to do, a few problems that they need to get fixed. For the most part, the street is in. They're just doing the finishing touches at this point. Sidewalks, driveways. We've got 3 areas they have to take out and do some and redo actually.
I want to talk about a couple other street projects, but let's talk about the city's ongoing sidewalk improvement program. And you're still putting in new sidewalks. I mean, I've seen several of them going in various neighborhoods.
Correct. We've been taking out old sidewalks. We've got a lot of 3-foot, 2-foot sidewalks in town, broken up, dilapidated sidewalks. Over the past 2 years, we've had a program of replacing those sidewalks. The worst ones, working our way down the list. We're about at the end of that list. We're going to have to start over and decide exactly what we want to keep the program going, or how we want to address the sidewalk issue.
And we're trying to make them wider as we go.
Right.
We're trying not to leave them narrow.
Oh no, they're all 4-foot sidewalks. And I think they've really improved walking around in the regional part of town, downtown area.
Now, this latest effort to upgrade the sidewalks is all financed by local option sales tax, right?
It's actually being financed through TIF.
Okay.
At this point. Those sidewalks are being put in place through no increase in taxes. We're using TIF. Typically, those sidewalks would be the responsibility of the homeowner.
Right.
However, the council here 2 years ago decided to absorb that cost, get the sidewalks in, get it done,
Right.
start with the worst ones, and improve.
But we still have more. I mean, that need to be
Oh,
done.
we've got quite a few. We've got quite a few sidewalks.
We budget a certain amount every year. And
It's not just a
those
replacement
sidewalks.
too. You're putting sidewalks where we haven't had sidewalks before.
The first year we were.
Yeah. We pretty much got that done.
Yeah, there's a couple
There's a few
streets,
left.
there's a couple streets that's going from the school to West Burlington Avenue that we're trying to make all the way through so that the kids can walk to school, because some of them don't have sidewalks at all.
Right.
It's in the plan. We went and looked at to see which ones we should do first, then second, then third, and I think we're at the end of that now, to where we need to look at more, so
Right.
that's what we're going to
We'll
do.
be doing that during this next budget session, this next fiscal year. So,
Let's go back to streets and talk about Broadway. As many of us are aware, part of Broadway is still seal coated. It's pretty narrow, there's parking there, and the council is looking at perhaps upgrading that street, or at least is talking about the possibility of doing so.
Broadway is part of our 5-year street plan, and I think that was the next one that came up on the list. And so we sent out surveys to the Broadway residents, and I think it was in March of this year, we had in our newsletter, we had a survey then, and we only got like 50 responses with maybe 12 from the Broadway residents, and that wasn't a very good sampling. And when the engineer came forward with his plans for Broadway, it was one to widen it 37 foot, and the other one was 31 foot, and of course you had to do nothing and abandoned parking. Well, none of that is conducive to Broadway for those residents. So we sent out the survey again to just the Broadway residents, and we got a fairly good sampling. I think 50 people responded.
Correct.
And a lot of them are fearful that if you widen it, we're going to have a drag strip down Broadway. And I don't blame them. It's a concern for me as well. And, you know, any street in West Burlington is mostly designated as a residential street. And if you look at Houston, and that's an arterial street, and that's about the same with the Broadway residents. So I think we need to listen to these people, but we still need to provide access for our fire trucks to get down that road, to head off to the fires and stuff like that. So
Well, just regular traffic, in my observations with the parking, I mean, it doesn't move freely because when you've got the parking, people can't get by, and there's just that bottleneck that naturally occurs. Because obviously, everybody knows it leads to Walmart.
Right. You've got on-street parking, and you've got the street average is anywhere from 25 to 26.5 feet. And normally, a street, that type of street in West Burlington would be at least 29 feet. The engineer's proposal was for a minimum of 31 feet if you're going to widen it and keep parking on the street.
We had one gentleman at this meeting that said that he usually parks his truck out there and he has one wheel up on the grass all the time. He has still lost 5 mirrors. So,
Doesn't everybody on Broadway though have off-street parking?
no, not everybody.
Not everybody?
No, there's some of those houses that don't have parking in
Okay,
the back.
all right. Well, that's just another issue that you're gonna have to consider as a council on how you deal with it and what you actually end up doing.
And the ones that may have parking doesn't have enough for maybe 2 cars. There may only be parking for one. And me, myself, if I lived on Broadway, I'd have to have one for my wife and me and my son
Okay,
that's
yeah.
going to school, so I'd have to have 3 parking spots.
Right.
And what happens when you come home the kids come home from college? So
Yeah, sure.
there's not adequate parking for them.
And I just want to assure everybody that the council has not made any formal decisions.
Right.
We merely had a work session or a discussion session to look at the options that are available to the council, to get public input, and we had a lot of residents come.
And there'll be more
And I'm
opportunities
sure
for public
and there'll be
input.
more opportunities.
You know, they really did give us a lot of good input, though.
Right.
They really did.
And I'm hoping to bring it back up during our budget session. We can talk about it a little bit more. We budgeted to do some simple improvements to Broadway this year, but then we're talking upwards of almost $500,000 if you went to 37 feet. And we didn't plan for that, so we'd have to make some adjustments. So there's definitely going to be more opportunity for discussion.
Let's narrow this down. Exactly what part of Broadway are we talking about that needs this attention? From where to where?
from Houston
From Houston
to
Up
Van Nuys.
to Van Nuys?
Yeah, and then we have a
Well,
section to agency where that needs to be addressed.
Actually, all of Broadway needs
All of Broadway.
attention, but the most critical is from the
Pennington?
viaduct.
Isn't that where the CFO starts?
14 blocks.
For expansion purposes or for widening purposes, you're probably talking the fire station
Okay.
South.
Okay.
and we don't want to take anybody from the fire station and their parking area out there and getting in and out of there. So you're probably talking something about the fire station south.
So we don't exactly know how much, but that's the
Right.
general idea. And
General, if you're going to widen it to 31, for example, you probably want to start after the fire station.
let me
And
ask.
we wouldn't do it all at once either.
Okay.
I don't think we're gonna go.
That's what, because that sounds like an expensive project to me, and Are we talking about actual reconstruction of the street then?
maybe.
What you don't know?
Well, yes, I mean, we know, with the engineer has made the recommendations, we have seal coat left on Broadway. We're talking reconstruction.
Okay.
Other areas, we're probably talking simply resurfacing. So there's a combination of, we've probably got the whole mix from the fire station on down to Van Wees, which is what this particular project is talking about. So
Okay.
you've got the whole mix in there.
And the reason we're a little iffy here, we just had that meeting here less than a month ago.
Sure,
Okay,
yeah.
with Broadway, and we haven't had time to get the whole council to sit down and say, okay, now we've had the input from the citizens, what do we want to do?
Right.
But we will do that. You know, we will have
And then
that.
you'll formulate your plan and then
Right.
give them a chance to comment on that.
Correct.
Let's talk about the Mount Pleasant and Gear corridor study, which I know you've been working on for quite a long time, and this is trying to smooth out traffic there and also connect North Gear with South Gear. So where are we at?
The council, about a month ago, adopted a plan that the Gear Avenue Corridor Committee put together. By adopting the plan, essentially the committee, working with the engineer, came together with some recommendations for the council, a series of events that they recommended, whether it be signalization or repairing or resurfacing or exactly. They came up with a plan to realign and improve Mount Pleasant and Gear. The council at this point has merely adopted or accepted that plan, and now what we need to do is sit down and determine what those first steps are going to be. The initial cost estimate is on nearly $1.5 million for the improvements. We need to sit down and determine whether or not we want to signalize, when we want to do it in the plan. So there's a lot left to do.
At least when you're talking about signalization and realignment, that is connecting North Gear and South Gear, and is that what you're referring to in the $1.5 million cost?
That's included in the cost. The realignment is included in the cost, and the committee actually chose to actually take South Gear and continue it north through. There's a housing area there along Mount Pleasant Street, and connect up with North Gear, and that's included in the $1.5 million cost. The committee also recommended that we take a look at finding sources of funds, federal funds most likely, to install a bridge or above grade crossing similar to what we have on West Burlington Avenue, so we don't have those problems with trains, for example. So we've got several different steps in there that we can take. Council really needs now, they've got a plan in front of them. We need to sit down and see exactly how we want to get things started.
Okay, I got one more question on this on this project as far as what are we seeing going on. Well, we do have a caller holding, we'll get right to them. But as far as what we're seeing on Gear right now, and front of the mall and the like, is that a replacement of the signalization which we've been waiting for a long time to move it farther down to the Target entrance versus the Farm King entrance?
Correct. That's what they're doing right now. They're getting ready. The Farm King entrance signal will come down, a new signal will come up across from the mall and Target. They're preparing, getting the concrete work and the electrical work done, setting the base so when the poles come in, they can be ready to go ahead and put those up. But that's a continuation of the project that we've been working on here for
There's
some time.
timetable on when that's going to be completed. I know they had trouble getting traffic signal poles.
Traffic
at
signal
times.
poles, and that's really what it's going to dictate when this project gets done, but I'm still hoping that we get that done in November.
Okay. Let's go to the phone lines. If you have a question or comment about West Burlington City Government, now is the time to call. Our first caller is Bill. Hi, Bill, you're on the air.
I have some comments regarding the Monday night council meeting. After allowing extensive discussion on the first three agenda items, which was proper, the council considered the fourth agenda item, which was an ordinance relating to firearms. This ordinance had been completely rewritten from its previous proposal and consideration. It was made available to the public at 8 o'clock Monday morning for their examination. When it was brought up by the council, no discussion, no inquiries were permitted. The council immediately passed it by a 4-to-1 vote. Then they immediately waived the second and third readings by a 4-to-1 vote. And this effectively denied the public any opportunity to inquire, discuss, object, or have any participation in the process. This particular ordinance appears to be a violation of state law. The council was well aware of that, but yet they went ahead and did it. How can they possibly justify this action?
Bill, I guess I would like to answer part of that, and maybe Greg can answer the other part, but as far as violation of the state laws, we had our city attorney look that over very well. As you would probably know, we had looked at an ordinance prior to the council meeting, and that we found a few flaws, like they'd be outlawed on the streets and the sidewalks, which we weren't thinking about. And we had that rewritten so that this ordinance only forbids them to be in the municipal buildings. We checked at this in great depth. We also talked to the League of Cities about it. We have talked to other cities about it. We have went so far as talked to people that why are schools outlawed and courthouses and our Social Security office, and I don't understand where you come up that it's truly against the law.
Section 724.28 of the Iowa Code simply prohibits a governmental subdivision passing a law which is more stringent than state law. And actually, the state laws provide all of the protections necessary.
Okay. Bill, I appreciate your call, and at the same time, I'm going to have to let this go because the council has passed the ordinance. I guess it's just a matter that somebody is going to have to challenge the ordinance in court if they want to. They have gone upon the advice of their city attorney and have taken action. So, and we have some other things we want to talk about here, but I appreciate your call this afternoon. We have another caller holding, and it happens to be Kim. Hi, Kim, you're on the air. Hello?
Hello?
Hi, you're on the air.
Okay, I'm listening to them still talking on the air.
Oh, okay. Well, you're on the air now.
Okay. I have a question and a comment that I would like to make.
Okay.
First off, I'd like to make a comment about today, when I read the article in the newspaper, about, this was actually addressed about Johnny Johnson's property at J.J. Auto Sales. And I tell you what, I used to live in very close proximity to this, and I was there when Raiders was there, and I have to say I can testify that those Raiders have gone and J&J Auto Sales has taken over that property. It's 100% better than what it was. And that's the comment I'd like to make. And I'd also like to ask a question. My question would be, it seems that there is a battle between Dan Hockett and the council, and I'd like to know this time who's going to win.
Denise, I'd like to answer that. Or Kim. I don't think there's going to be any winner in this battle. You know, when it gets to such a situation like it is right now, the only thing is that's going to come out, the outcome of this is the city's going to lose. And I wish there was a way to resolve this. And at that, I'm not going to make any more comment on it because the situation is going to go to court here shortly, and it'll be solved there, I assume.
I guess I'd like to just say one thing about the questions that came up regarding J&J Auto Sales. I just want to make sure that everyone knows that if city staff or the city receives a complaint, we'll take a look at it. We'll address it just like we would anybody else. We would not treat a council member any differently than any one of our residents. So we'll take a look at it. If there is an issue, we'll work with the resident or the property owner to address the issue, so.
Okay,
Thanks for your call, Kim.
thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
752-2701 if you have a question or a comment. I tell you what, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back in a moment. Talk show, West Burlington City Business is our topic today. Council members Therese Lees, John Johnson, as well as the city manager Greg Mansager. Let's try to talk about a few more things before the end of the show. Phone lines still are open, folks, 752-2701. Let's talk about Long Meadow and community parks. I know there have been a lot of improvements out at Long Meadow Park here of late. What's in the news lately, Therese?
As we sit here today, our crews are out there putting in the soccer fields, the nets. We have on purchase, I don't think it's arrived yet, the handicap swing for our park for our handicapped kids to have access to. We've put up a whole bunch of new playground equipment for those kids that will last a lifetime. We put up a sidewalk around the perimeter of Long Meadow Park, and let me tell you, I see people, young and old alike, walking that sidewalk. I think the improvements we've done to that park is just more than anybody thought would ever happen. And it was all because of a grant that Greg applied for and helped purchase these items. And our city crews put in a new parking facility, a concrete parking facility, and for JK, we have an elderly senior swing out.
Oh, thanks. I'll have to go check it out.
You'll have to chase me out of it.
Now, Trace, not all of that is covered under that grant, though. Some of that park money has been funded by the TIF there, too, so.
About a third of it's covered by the grant, 2/3 is being funded by TIF.
Are you
What's
loose
new out of
your
community?
hair? Hi, I'm Jim Austin with an
Well, right now we're in the process of revamping the plans that the original plans that we had were several years old. We've hired Mike Steinman, the original drafter of plans, to work with us and get those developed. First couple things on the agenda for community will be a new play structure and a concession stand for the Little League. We'd like to get that in place before the next season starts, so we're bringing that to council here pretty quick.
Okay. And I think the concession stand is going to be something like what's at the school. You know, something on that
Order. Okay, we're running short on time. We got some callers, and we'll see if we can help them out, but we're not going to have a lot of time to chat with them. First up is Paul. Hi, Paul, you're on the air.
Ask him about that brush on the water and sewer line. What are they going to be saying about that? I'll hang up and listen on radio.
Okay, Paul, Greg or John, can you nutshell what's happening out there in the brush town with that water and sewer project?
We met Monday night at our council meeting to discuss a contract and an ordinance. The contract was with Burlington Northern. And they would essentially provide about $750,000 to help us install water and sewer out there, and we'd be responsible for nearly $200,000 of the work. And what that would do is bring water and sewer out there. We have been working with Railroad. They've been taking proactive measures to deal with contamination that they had on their site from 20 years ago or so. The ordinance that was discussed was a well closure ordinance, and it requires the city to close wells if they are contaminated or there is a threat of contamination. And really, this well closure ordinance has been a stickler. Several of the residents attended our meeting on Monday night, and really, this seems to be really the only issue that we have left to deal with.
So it's not a done deal yet?
Correct. It's not a done deal at this time.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, after Monday night, the meeting before that, I told the people that had hired an attorney to fight the railroad that to go back and talk to their attorney and tell them that come up with a plan that they could accept, because the railroad's been working with us for 1.5 years on this thing. And when they came back this council meeting, it was they had no plan. They had no other solution except they did not want us to close the wells. Well, I made the motion and it never went nowhere, and to go ahead with this closure of the wells and this agreement with the railroad. And as far as I'm concerned, the railroad has done more than what they need to do. $750,000. There's no contamination from their site to these people's site. The wells that are contaminated are contaminated by septic tanks, not by the railroad. I hope it don't end here. I hope that they can come back, and I hope the railroad gives us a chance for one more try. But if they don't, it's a done deal.
Okay. Let's go back to the phone lines and see if we can talk with Joe quickly. Hi, Joe, you're on the air.
Yeah, I just wondered when the city of West Burlington was going to finish off Division Street to the hospital.
That's what we also wanted to talk about. Thanks, Joe. Okay. That was next on our list. What's the plan there?
Let's see, we're working with the landowner, and of course everybody knows recently F&M Bank purchased a 7.5 acre lot out there across from the hospital. So we're working with the bank, the landowner, the Danielson Family Trust, and to try and get that street in. I don't know, as everybody knows, or as most people know, the part of the proceeds from the bank purchase will go towards Division Street. We're also working with the bank and potential developers for the land surrounding Division Street. We've applied for a RISE grant application with the Iowa Department of Transportation that will hopefully provide about $375,000 towards the completion of the street. So it's been a priority as long as I've been here to try and get Division Street through, and I know it's been a priority for our council. We're getting closer, and hopefully we'll hear regarding our RISE grant application here this fall.
And if I could add to that real quick.
We've got about 2 minutes.
Okay, if I could add to that, I've sat through a couple forums, and every forum I've sat through, the Division Street has been an issue. And I believe everybody on council is in agreement that Division Street needs to be pushed through. But one of the problems was the property owner. I think we have an agreement that will work out with the property owners now. And I think that the project has a lot of hope of going through right now.
Just briefly, I have it on my list of things to talk about, and it's located on Division, Cobalt International. Things seem to be going well with this new industry out in West Burlington.
The only thing left for the council to do at this point is to act on a TIF agreement with Cobalt International. The council has unanimously agreed to about 5 or 6 essential terms that would be part of that contract that would bring Cobalt International to West Burlington. It's a forgivable loan in the amount of $278,000. We're talking about 43 jobs with an average wage of $13.30. And one of the key elements is that the city doesn't have to provide any funding until the building has been constructed and is occupied. And they have to agree to, of course, a minimum assessment so that we get the amount of taxes back that we need to get this paid off in 7 or 8 years, hopefully. So hopefully we can get this wrapped up here in the next month or so.
I'm very happy with the thing with Cobalt because, believe it or not, everybody agreed on this one.
Okay.
And I was informed that we had 52 states.
Well, then, right there. Okay. That's going to do it for today's talk show. Thanks to West Burlington City Manager Greg Mansayer, along with council members John Johnson and Therese Lees. I'm J.K. Martin. This is Clear Channel, KBUR Burlington on the Mississippi. We're coming up on 2 o'clock and news from ABC.